Welcome to Grove Bites. I'm Richard Steele. My guest today is Dr Martin Hodson, one of the authors of the Grove book COVID-19, Environment, Justice and the Future. Martin is Operations Director of the John Ray Initiative. Now that's an educational charity that brings together scientific and Christian understandings of the environment. He's a plant scientist and an environmental biologist and a former principal lecturer and now visiting researcher at Oxford Brookes University. And Martin told me how as recently as the 1990s, the environment was little talked about in churches at all.
Then, if you heard a bishop talk about the environment, it was a major event, and the church wasn't really interested at all. But now, it's totally changed. It's not to say that we haven't got a lot of things that still need to be done and that we need to be improving things. But, we've had 3,000 churches getting on sign up for the Eco Church scheme in the UK, in England and Wales. And that gives you an idea of the sort of interest. And before the pandemic, we were out speaking 2 or 3 times a week. And, we were getting so much coming in that we couldn't handle it all.
Can we turn specifically to the book now? Now, you say in the book, in your chapter in the book, you argue that it's only when we understand our own role in this crisis that we can take responsibility for the sort of world to come afterwards. So I want to know, what do you mean by that? How much responsibility can I as an individual take for a global issue?
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to realize that basically our terrible treatment of the creation has led to pandemics in the past. We know that for sure. Most of the pandemics we've had have been because of our bad treatment of the environment in general terms. With COVID-19, we've got an idea that it probably is due to our bad treatment of the environment, that there is a little bit of muddy water there. Because it's a new thing, we still haven't got it all tied down. But in general terms, we are doing some terrible things to animals, to the environment in general, climate change, biodiversity loss. You look at it, we have not got a good record.
And again, a quote from the book: "A post-COVID world can reflect God's priorities of justice and peace for all." Now, I think 2 questions in my mind, and the first one of those is, in what way, do you think it can, and why do you feel these are justice and peace are God's priorities? Why those?
I think you would have to say that COVID-19 has not been a great leveler. Early on in the pandemic, people were saying, oh yes, well, the Prime Minister can get COVID, so it's a great leveler. But it isn't. What has happened is that the rich people, by and large, have done a lot better during the pandemic than poor people. The BAME community have done particularly badly as a result of the pandemic. So there is a very considerable justice issue in this whole thing. What has happened, of course, is that people like me have been able to work at home a lot of the time, keep away from areas where the virus is prevalent, whereas poorer people have to work in those environments and are more likely to catch it. And so there is a very serious justice issue with this whole thing. And I do think that there is a kind of a sea change, that there is a lot of stuff happening that I think will, given the right sort of leadership, mean that we could actually go forward. You've just seen what has happened with Boris Johnson's announcement on wind energy. And, we're going to be going big on wind in offshore wind. That would never have happened even 5 years ago. 5 years ago, they would have been saying, oh, wind, there's no use doing wind.
As I think Boris did himself at one point.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's wind is the thing, we're going to do it. And so, there is a lot of change out there.
Because I've heard people say, well, it's okay dealing with COVID because that's a crisis and that's a today problem. The environment is more of a tomorrow problem, and of course, tomorrow never comes. So you're an optimist?
I am an optimist, but I think although you might say tomorrow never comes, just look at what is happening with climate change. Climate change is actually here and now. It isn't somewhere in the future. You can see what is happening. We're getting stronger and more powerful hurricanes. All kinds of stuff is happening at the moment, which is indicating to us that it isn't just the pandemic. We've got other things. What has happened with WWF, their recent report on biodiversity, between 1970 and 2018, we've had a 68% decline in wild animal populations. 68%. It's over 2/3 of our animals have disappeared. Not species, but population sizes. That is massive. And we're beginning to get that data, and it's beginning to impact on people, and we're beginning to say we've got to do something. So I think there's a lot of really nasty stuff out there. It can get very depressing putting together lectures on this stuff. But there is also a lot of people now saying this has got to change.
Yeah, you do finish the book, the conclusion, as you put it together, says, it is clearly a crisis, and it's an economic crisis as well as a health crisis, but, a moment of opportunity, and you've talked a little bit about that. So again, just maybe, just to sort of go back, just to push you a little bit more, what do you think is it about this crisis that makes a positive outcome more or less likely in the long term, not just the short term?
I kind of think, I just do see this incredible sea change. Now, it may be that I'm living in this green bubble and that everybody around me is saying it, but you just look at what's happening with, I think it's particularly the young people, and it is particularly the church. You would never, ever have seen what has been happening in the church. Church of England deciding to go for a 2030 target for carbon neutral. Yeah, I mean, that is phenomenal. I mean, it's almost impossible to do, but it's...
We'll wait and see what happens.
I have lived through this, and I can see that things are getting better. We really have got something good happening in this area.
Martin Hodson of the John Ray Initiative. To find out more about why he and the other authors feel the environment is such a key issue for the future of every person on this planet, then go to Grove Books, where you can order COVID-19, Environment, Justice and the Future as the print copy or as an even more environmentally friendly PDF. And if you want to find more about the John Ray Initiative, then go to their website. There are many more great Grove books applying the Bible to a wide variety of situations in the church and the world. They're written by authors who know what they're writing about. Grove Books are bite-sized publications that you can really get your teeth into. Goodbye for now, and I hope to see you again soon.